The world believed Princess Diana's fortune would vanish into the royal vault after her death. They were wrong. When executors unsealed her will in 1997,
there is a moment, sometime in the late hours of August 31st, 1997, when the world changed quietly before it changed loudly. A car had gone into a tunnel in Paris. And by the time morning light reached Britain, the woman that millions of people had grown up watching, grieving with, and adoring was gone. Princess Diana was 36 years old. She left behind 2 young sons, an ocean of unfinished conversations, and a will that most people still do not fully understand. What if I told you that within the pages of that will, Diana made a decision so specific, so deliberate, that it effectively placed her entire estate in the hands of one person? And what if it told you that the story of how that played out, the court battles, the quiet changes, the broken promises, and the one inheritance that shaped everything, has never been told quite the way it deserves to be? Because once you understand what Diana actually wrote, who she trusted, what she intended, and what happened next, you will see this story differently, completely differently. Diana signed her will on June 1st, 1993. She was 32 years old. The world knew her as a princess, a mother, a global icon. But at the moment she sat down and signed those papers, she was also a woman in the middle of one of the most painful periods of her life. Her marriage was collapsing. The pressure of royal life had taken a serious toll on her mental and physical health. And yet, in all of that, she sat down and thought carefully about what she wanted to leave behind. Her will was surprisingly straightforward for someone of her wealth and status. Many senior royals have wills that stay sealed for decades after their deaths. Prince Philip's will, for example, was locked away for 90 years. Diana's was made public in 1998, just a year after she passed away. And what it revealed was a woman who had thought not just about money, but about meaning. Her estate at the time of her death was valued at just over £21 million. She once had it placed in trust for her 2 sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. They would be able to access the interest generated from the trust when they turned 25 and inherit their full shares at that age. She also set aside £50,000 for her loyal butler Paul Burrell, a man she trusted deeply and had worked with for nearly a decade. A separate fund of £100,000 was earmarked for her sons and their future families. But here is where the story gets interesting. The day after she signed her will, June 2 ND, 1993, Diana wrote something additional. A personal letter. A letter of wishes. In it, she described exactly how she wanted her belongings distributed. Her jewelry, she wrote, should go to her sons William and Harry, so that one day their future wives could wear those pieces 3/4 of her personal property. Her clothing, photographs, furniture, artwork, was to be divided between her 2 boys. The remaining quarter was to be shared among her 17 godchildren. 17 godchildren. Diana had chosen 17 families to be part of her children's lives in a meaningful, personal way. And in her letter, she made clear that they mattered. Each godchild was meant to receive items worth approximately $160,000. Not trinkets, not tokens, real meaningful pieces of a life that had touched millions. Now here is where the will connects to that one person. Diana named her mother, Frances Shan Kidd, as the primary executor and trustee of her estate. Her sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, was named alongside her. These 2 women, her mother and her older sister, were handed the keys to everything Diana had built and everything she hoped to pass on. Originally, Diana had also included her private secretary Patrick Jeffson in this role. But after resigned in 1996, she updated her will and replaced him with her sister. In the end, it was her mother and her sister who held all the power. And what they chose to do with that power changed the course of Diana's legacy. Diana died on August 31st, 1997. William was 15. Harry was just 12. The nation grieved in a way that felt collective and almost physical. Flowers piled up outside Kensington Palace. People stood in lines for hours just to sign a book of condolences. And behind closed doors, the legal machinery of Diana's estate quietly began to move. Just 4 months after her funeral, in December 1997, Diana's mother and sister walked into the High Court of Justice in England. They applied for what is called a variation order. This is a legal tool that allows executors to change the terms of how an estate is distributed, even when a will already exists. The court approved their application, and with that approval, Diana's carefully written wishes began to be rewritten. The first change was to the inheritance age. Diana had specified 25. Her executors reset it to 30. They argued that given the public nature of William and Harry's lives, it would be better to delay a significant financial inheritance. On the surface, that reasoning sounds protective. But Diana had specifically chosen 25. She had thought about it. She had written it down. And her executors changed it without ever consulting the princes, who at the time were still grieving children with no legal voice in the matter. The second change was far more quietly devastating. Diana's godchildren, all 17 of them, were effectively cut out of the meaningful inheritance she had planned for them. Instead of receiving a significant share of her personal belongings, each godchild was given a single item. And those items were not chosen by the families. They were chosen by the executors. Many families later described what they received as small household objects, a figurine, a coffee set, items that felt completely disconnected from the woman who had chosen them as godparents to her children. Some described the items as little more than decorative pieces with no emotional weight at all. What made this even harder to process was that the families did not know about any of it for years. Diana's letter of wishes was not made public during the probate process. The executors did not inform the godchildren's families that a letter existed or that changes had been made. The truth only surfaced during a separate court case involving Paul Burrell, Diana's butler, who was accused of taking items from her estate. When the godchildren's families finally learned what Diana had intended for them and what had been taken away, many felt a deep and lasting sense of betrayal. Legal experts who have studied Diana's case point to a specific problem in how the letter of wishes was written. Diana used language like wishes and discretion rather than firm instructions. And in the eyes of the law, that distinction matters enormously. Because her mother and sister were technically given discretion, that word appears in the document. They had the legal authority to interpret her wishes however they chose. The lesson that estate lawyers now draw from Diana's case is a painful one. If you want your wishes honored, they must be written into the will itself, not into a side letter. A letter of wishes, no matter how sincere, carries no binding legal force. Now let us talk about the ring. Because no conversation about Diana's estate would be complete without the ring. The sapphire engagement ring that Charles gave Diana in 1981 is one of the most recognizable pieces of jewelry in the world. A 12-carat oval blue sapphire, surrounded by 14 diamonds, set in 18-carat white gold. When it was purchased, it cost £47,000. Today, it is estimated to be worth well over £400,000. Diana chose it herself from a catalog, which quietly shocked the palace, because it meant the ring was not bespoke. Anyone, in theory, could have walked in and bought the same ring. But Diana wore it, and in wearing it, she made it irreplaceable. After Diana passed away, her sons were invited to choose items from her jewelry collection as personal keepsakes. According to Paul Burrell, William chose a Cartier tank watch that Diana had received as a gift on her 21st birthday. Harry chose the sapphire engagement ring. He later said that when he looked at it, he felt the memory of holding his mother's hand as a small child, the sensation of that large stone pressing against his tiny fingers. It was the most tangible piece of her he had left. For years, the story told publicly was a warm one. When William decided to propose to Catherine Middleton in 2010, Harry had reportedly offered his brother the ring, the most precious thing he owned, so that Catherine could wear it and carry Diana's memory into the future. It was a story people loved. Two brothers grieving together, choosing to honor their mother through an act of generosity. Then in 2023, Harry published his memoir. And in it, he said the story was not true, had ascribed the version most people knew as completely false. According to Harry, William had asked for the ring after their mother's death, and Harry had simply agreed. He said he never had the ring to begin with, which meant the moment of him handing it over never actually happened. Two versions, one ring. and the truth sitting somewhere between two brothers whose relationship has since fractured in ways that Diana never could have imagined. Whatever the full truth may be, the ring now rests on the hand of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. And in that one fact, at least one of Diana's original wishes was honored. She had written in her letter that her jewelry should go to her sons, so that in time their wives might wear it. The sapphire is now worn at state occasions and public engagements. It connects Catherine to Diana in a way that no legal document could have engineered. It simply exists visible and meaningful on the hand of a woman who will one day be queen. Now let's look at what Diana's money actually did in the years that followed. By the time William and Harry both turned 30, each of their shares from Diana's estate had grown to approximately £10 million, roughly $16 million at today's values. The estate had been carefully invested and managed over the years, and it grew significantly from its original value. For William, the inheritance was important, but not transformative. As the future King of England, his financial security was always going to be guaranteed by the Crown. He now controls the Duchy of Cornwall, a private estate valued at more than £1 billion that generates millions in annual income. Diana's money was meaningful to him, but it was not the thing that shaped his path. He also reportedly received a share of an inheritance from his great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, which added another substantial layer to his financial position. For Harry, the story was entirely different. In 2021, Harry and Meghan sat down with Oprah Winfrey and described what had happened when they stepped back from royal duties. Harry said that the royal family had cut them off financially. He was honest about what that meant and what had saved them. He said that Diana's inheritance was what made their move to California possible. Without it, he said, they could not have done what they did. Think about what that means. The money Diana set aside in 1993, when Harry was barely 8 years old, became the financial foundation of his entire life outside the institution. In a very real sense, Diana's final gift to her younger son was the ability to walk away from the very structure that had confined her. There is a question that lingers in this story and probably always will. Did Diana's executors delay the inheritance because they genuinely believed the princes needed more time? Or was there something else at play? For years after Diana's death, her childhood home Althorpe House opened its doors to the public. Visitors came to see Diana's belongings, including, for a time, her famous wedding dress, and the Spencer family earned significant income from those visits. The delay in distributing the estate meant that those items remained available. Whether that was a factor in the court petition is not something anyone has confirmed. But it is a question that several people who have studied this case closely have raised, and it deserves to be asked. Diana's godchildren remain perhaps the saddest part of this story. She chose 17 families. She wrote about them the day after signing her will, which tells you how much they were on her mind. She wanted them to have something real, something that carried her memory in it. Instead, most of them received a single item selected by someone else, with no knowledge that Diana had intended far more for them. When the truth came out, some families spoke about the hurt they felt, not because of the money exactly, but because of what the money represented. Diana had included them. And then, quietly and without their knowledge, that inclusion had been taken back. What does all of this tell us? Diana wrote her will at 32, trusting two of the people closest to her in the world. She believed her mother and her sister would carry her intention forward faithfully. She believed the letter she wrote the following morning would be Anna Rita's, a sincere expression of who she was and what she cared about. She was wrong on both counts. The people she trusted most used the legal tools available to them to reshape her legacy in ways she had never authorized. And yet, and this matters, there are parts of Diana that could not be rewritten. Harry now shines on the hand of the woman who carries her title. Her money gave her younger son the freedom to build a life on his own terms, just as Diana always wanted for herself and never fully achieved. Her name is spoken every single day somewhere in the world. Her sons carry her forward in ways that no court order could erase. Althorpe, Diana's childhood home, is where she rests now, on a small private island in the middle of a lake on the estate grounds. It is not open to the public. It is quiet and surrounded by trees. William and Harry will never inherit it. By the old rules of inheritance, it passes to Diana's nephew. But they will always be welcome there. Diana's brother Charles, Spencer, has made that clear. They can visit whenever they wish. They can stand by that water and be near her. Diana wrote her while believing she had decades ahead of her to refine it, to update it, to make it exactly right. She was 32 years old, and she thought she had time. She didn't. And the gap between what she wrote and what she got to finish became the space in which others made decisions she never sanctioned. But here is what stays with you when you step back and look at the whole picture. The woman in that will, the one who thought about her godchildren, who wanted her sons to give her jewelry to the women they loved, who set aside money so Harry would never be completely without options. That woman was thinking about everyone except herself. Even at 32, even in the middle of a collapsing marriage and an overwhelming public life, she was making sure the people she loved would be taken care of. That is the real story of Princess Diana's estate. Not just the legal battles, or the changed inheritance ages, or the godchildren who were quietly forgotten. The real story is about a woman who trusted deeply, loved fiercely, and left behind something that no variation order could ever fully undo. Her legacy belongs to her children, and through them, in ways both visible and invisible, it belongs to all of us who grew up knowing her name. That if this story stayed with you, share your thoughts below. Do you think Diana's executors made the right decisions, or did they betray the trust she placed in them? And do you believe the ring went to William the way Harry describes, or is the truth something we may never fully know? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep following stories like this one, make sure you are subscribed. There's always more to uncover.